Hey, Smarterfan family, welcome to another segment of Smarterfan Podcast, where we bring you behind the veil of sports, business, and life. I'm Joe, and this is Barry. How you doing, Barry?
Man, I'm so excited, Joe. 4th of July weekend, bouncing back in the saddle again. And boy, do we have a show for you tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I was working hard, Joe, while you out there eating hot dogs and french fries and hamburgers. I'm over here working like a slave. We have an incredible guest tonight, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. So what you got going on, buddy?
Well, the Subway series concluded yesterday.
Yeah.
As you know, I mean, it was a Juan Soto show on Friday. You know, he homered along with McNeil, so they won 6-5. You know, Saturday, Rodon gives up a grand slam in the first inning to start the game off. Nimmo hit the grand slam, you know, and Alonso, he homered twice and drove in 5 runs. Now, that put him third on the all-time Mets list for RBIs. He's just surpassed Mike Piazza for that.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's also 6 home runs behind Strawberry for the club record of 252.
Jeez.
So, yeah, he's earning his money this year, that's for sure. Now,
exciting.
Yeah, definitely, you know. Now, the one thing that's always plagued the Yankees, and this has been a pet peeve of mine, is the sloppy play in the field. This has cost them so many games because they're not just playing the fundamentals. They don't even know the fundamentals of the game, you know. And what gets me is, like, you know, these people call up these talk shows and they say, "Oh, well, then why aren't the Yankees doing anything about it?" And then all the talk show hosts saying, "Well, we don't know what's being said behind closed doors." Yeah, we do. Nothing, because they keep making the same dumb mistakes year in and year out, over and over and over again. So,
yeah,
you know. So now, Cody Bellinger, they're gonna have to pay this man. Because he's only signed for 1 year. And he went 2 for 4 yesterday, and he made this incredible catch in the game. And then he doubled Lindor off of first base.
Wow.
So now they're going to have to pay him because he's the only one really, really driving this team, you know, as far as being consistent, you know.
Well, you know what he's playing for. And if the Yankees don't smarten up, he's basically auditioning.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know, and, you know, if they won't pay, somebody else will.
Because, no doubt, you know, because he can play left. He's a natural center fielder, and he can play first.
Oh, boy. Jeez.
You know, so he helped save that game and salvage the series and kept them from getting swept. So, and it was still a struggle because they were up 5-0 and they wound up winning 6-4.
Wow.
You know, so because as soon as they took Friedman out, when they took Max Fried out, then the bullpen started giving it back. You know, so, and Clark Schmidt, he's done for the season. He's going to have Tommy John surgery.
Really?
So now they got to go shopping for another arm, you know, for the before the trade deadline. So, you know, it's just the pitching is decimated, and this is the other thing. It's like, yeah, and because these pitchers are trained to just go 5 innings, now then the bullpen has got to get 12 outs.
Wow.
You know,
That's a perspective.
yeah, yeah. So so you're wearing your bullpen out,
Yeah.
and that's so now they're limping into the All Star break again.
You got to know how to manage assets.
Yeah, well, you know, they 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 just ended another 6 game losing streak, and I'm just so tired of Boone going out in front of the press and trying to put lipstick on a pig, so to speak.
Well, he only does it because it works.
I mean, that's,
The stadium is full, Joe. People are
yeah,
buying product, paying for parking. Come on, Joe. Hot
yeah,
dogs. The
I
money
know.
is crazy. The money
See,
is crazy. So you're not. I think, and it's affecting all sports. Even Michael Jordan said one of the big things problem with the league now is these kids come out making so much money. There's a real question if there's even a love for the game,
no, not at all.
and you kind of really see it.
But
You
but
know,
but but don't get me started on that.
I know, I know. Oh boy, I know.
So so we have a guest tonight.
We do have a guest. We actually have three guests. It's all the Reed coach. I call it the Coach Reed family, and
Mhm.
so we have Senior Reed. He's not going to be on tonight. He's going to be on. Then there's Carl, but we have his brother. Uh, I believe is Drake,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And his story is phenomenal. I mean, from playing overseas in
Mm.
basketball, playing internationally for a U.S. citizen playing for Mali national team, that's a whole story in itself.
Mm.
To his incredible accolades from high school to college and on to the international basketball. I mean, this is really kind of him and his brother are a renaissance, dad too, are renaissance men at a high
Mm.
level. And really will give us a peek into behind the veil, as we always say, of what the other side of sports and the dynamics of sports. And as he's coaching young people, out in Tennessee. He's back with his family in Tennessee, and
Mm.
there's just so much to cover. So we'll probably end up doing 3 shows because there's too much to cover. So with no further ado, we're gonna ask Coach Reed to come on in and let's get it started.
What's up, fellas?
All right. All
Hey,
right. How you doing? How you doing?
Doing
Coach,
great, doing great. How about
so
y'all?
glad, so sorry, so glad to have you. So glad you're here. So I know you have a busy schedule. And give me your first name again. It is Drake.
Drake, yeah.
Okay, the ginkgo biloba has kicked in. Okay, all right, we're working tonight. We're working tonight. Well, Joe, I'm going to let you start because if I start, I'll be over in Africa and Asia. I'll be all over.
Mm.
So you start, and then I'll pick up from you, my friend.
Okay. All right. So good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So, my question is, who was your biggest athletic role model, and why when you were coming up?
Um, I can't say it was really my role model because I didn't know him personally, but I mean,
Hmm.
everyone when I was coming up wanted to be like Mike. So I
Mm.
remember, watching my dad watching his games and just seeing them play when I was 4 or 5 years old, and I knew at that moment that's what I wanted to do when I got older. So
Mm.
but as far as a role model, I mean, I had a lot of role models. My
Mm.
brother was probably my biggest role model as a kid,
Hmm.
6 years older than me, and so he was really good at football, and so that made me want to play football. He really taught me how to work hard to a certain extent, but my dad was the one that really instilled the work ethic in both of us, and
Mm.
that things could be possible because even the older I get, the more I talk to my dad about, his childhood, and he's opening up about a lot of things that he experienced as a young man. And it's
Yeah.
like you understand why you were able to do what you were able to do because of the foundation that he laid. So I would say the role model of my life was my dad. You know, but
Yeah.
as far as athletics goes, I would say my brother was probably my first big role model.
Yeah, I can relate to that. My dad, he instilled the same work ethic in us.
Mhm.
My parents said, "We'll put a roof over your head, we'll put clothes on your back, but anything else you want, you got to go out there and earn."
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you
I
know,
think that was big for me because, I've told a lot of people throughout my life. I think one of the biggest things that my parents did was they never told us we couldn't achieve something. So,
mm,
I've seen a
yeah,
lot of families, tell their kids, a lot of things that they can't do. But my parents never told us any of that. They were like, "Hey, you just got to put in the work." It could have been we could
exactly,
have told them we wanted to go to the moon. All right, well, you got to put in the work, and that was
exactly.
their response.
That
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
what was your favorite part about playing sports?
I think initially is just to have fun and competing. Competing against your friends, seeing who's the best, and then as you get older, you have different challenges that happen in your life. What for me, I was not the biggest and the strongest and the fastest. People look at me now and they're like, "Man, what you lying?" But you start off from humble beginnings like everyone. I started high school. I was 5'9", 165 pounds, and by Christmas I was 6'3", 175 pounds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tall, but still not very strong, and finished high school at 6'4", 205 pounds. So
Mm.
it was just you don't know what's going to happen, and that's why I always tell families, when you look at this kid that's 12 years old, that's 8 years old, you don't know how big they're going to be. But
Don't
I
know.
do think that most people in their spirit, they have an idea of what they're going to be and what's available to them that's already instilled in them by God.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
good. That's
definitely.
good.
Mm. So, what is your proudest athletic achievement?
Whew. Um, I don't know. That's a tough one, man. It's a lot of them. Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know.
Mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. There's so much out there. It's just
I think we could probably give us a clue if some of you, if you could share with us some of the awards you won and accolades you possess, and could you share a little bit with us about those?
um, I mean, in high school, I was the MVP of the state All Star game. Um, I
Was
was
that in Tennessee or
in Tennessee.
okay?
I was MVP of
mm,
the North South State All Star game. I was a state All State player. I was a receiver of the year in football my junior year. Collegiately, I was a player of the year in my conference as a sophomore. I was,
mm.
all in BC, I think twice, um,
Where'd you play ball?
at Austin Peay State University,
Austin P. Yeah.
yeah, in Ohio
Weren't
Valley.
you weren't you inducted to the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, yeah, I was inducted to the Hall of Fame when I think I was 20, late 20s. So we were supposed
Wow.
to do it a bit earlier, but it kept having a schedule conflict when I was playing overseas. So, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm in the Hall of Fame there. I had my number retired at my high school.
Mm.
I am the all-time wins leader in the history of ALM, the franchise called ALM Evro in France.
Mm.
It will
Mm,
be
okay.
probably be a while before someone breaks that. Uh,
Wow.
Wow.
so
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
so some of those things, and then of course playing for Mali and on the national team
Yeah.
in Mali, that's a huge step, and it's a big step for me, not just because I played on a national team in Africa, but actually doing the research and actually finding, the trail of how my family came to the United States during those slave times. So that was huge for me.
Mm,
Mm.
mm. Definitely.
Amazing. 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 Go ahead,
Yeah.
Joe. I'm sorry.
Now, so what do you think is the biggest challenge both athletes are facing today?
I actually I was thinking about this a little earlier. I think the biggest issue with most athletes right now is an identity crisis. Uh,
Mm.
Mm,
and I think it starts in high school, or even earlier than that, maybe even middle school or elementary school for kids now, because they have so much more access than they did when we were younger.
yeah.
So I think identity is a big issue, and you're already going through whatever you're experiencing growing up in life as a young person. But when you're being pulled in so many different directions already from the sports aspect, but now you have this phone in your hand that has access
Mm.
to all sorts of things from drugs, alcohol, sex, um,
Mm.
ungodly spiritual practices, all sorts of things that are really you're really jacking a lot of people up. So I think the identity crisis is who am I, where am I going,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
you also
Yeah. Yeah.
when you are tremendously successful as an athlete, especially you talk about high school guys, you probably in the media 3 to 5 times a week.
Yep.
So when you're having that type of success, especially now, the younger they're getting NIL deals, they're getting collective,
Mm-hmm.
contracts. They're getting these things early, and so it's legal to make a lot of money, at a much earlier age. So now you're out earning, your family members, your parents, your grandparents, and these sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
So your identity can get jacked up because now you're put in an adult's position,
Yep.
at 17, at 20.
Definitely.
And so, even though if you're in college, if you're 20 years old, you're still considered as an adult. You're still very much mentally a kid.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Things
Yeah.
out. So, I would say identity is a big thing right now. And so, I always tell a lot of families that ask me questions about, their kids is, I'll tell you, whoever gets to your kid first wins initially. You
Hmm.
know, so if you want to instill certain values into them, you cannot use the excuse of I'm working too much or whatever's going on because somebody else is going to get their hand on them,
Hmm.
and it's going to be up to you know you can't expect a young person to figure it out on their own. It's better to have more of an influx of your parental influence on them, and a big portion of that is placing them in the right situations early because the reality is you're probably spending 2 to 4 hours maybe a day by the time you get to middle school, high school with your family.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's important to put them in the right schools and to have the right teachers and coaches that are around them because they're going to be part of the raising process.
Definitely. Definitely. So yeah. Yeah. It takes a village to raise a child. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
so Barry, what's your input?
Oh, I got a whole bunch. We're gonna circle right back. I want you to talk to us, Coach, about the book that you wrote.
Well, it's actually a 3 book series. 2 of them are out now.
Oh,
So
okay.
so
Wow.
now people
Christian athletes versus the world. Are
yeah,
they the same or are
Mm.
they covering different topics?
they're covering different topics. So volume one deals with what you need to know before you leave your family. So if
Wow.
you're going to a prep school in another city, state, if you're moving to go to
Yeah.
college, or if you're going to move on to a professional team, it'll work any scenario. But
Mm.
I found it to be very important because here I was, leaving my home state from St. Louis, Missouri, coming to Clarksville, Tennessee at 14 years old. Then after college was not so difficult because I already was living in Clarksville. But when I moved out of the country, going from here to Australia, then the
Yeah.
next season moving to France, then the next season moving to Austria, then back to France, then to Libya, then to Argentina, then
Wow.
all this stuff. So what happens is you get twisted up, you know. Uh, and
Mm.
a lot of people think that's just like it's like an anomaly, but it's really not. There's so many athletes in so many sports playing in tournaments in other states and countries. They're
Mm.
coming to and from. I thought what I did was a big deal in high school until I became a professional. Half the team grew up in the Caribbean, grew up in Africa, and left their home
Mm.
countries. When they were in middle school, or 14
Wow.
or high schoolers. And so I thought me moving to another state, a border state, was like a big deal. They're moving
Uh,
3,000 miles away from their family. So this is nothing.
yeah.
If you're going to be an Olympian, if you're going to be someone who is a prominent or that might be your opportunity.
Yeah.
So you need to know what to be or what to be prepared for. A lot of the big things that a lot of athletes have no clue about is spiritual warfare. Okay, so
Mm.
Mm.
they don't know how to pray. I know I thought I knew how to pray, but you don't know how to pray against. You don't know how to have
Yeah.
a team. To have your aunts and your uncles and have ministers and people in your corner that are constantly praying for you, and then as a young person conveying to them what you're actually experiencing, so they can pray more accurately. So these are
Mm.
some of the topics I covered, and half of the books are very spiritual, and the other half are very practical. But I'm finding that, especially throughout my career, I lost my walk for a period of time and got it back toward at the end of my career. But there's a lot
Mm.
of athletes that I know personally, okay, that have the same issue is they're too far away from the vine, they're not connected to the vine. So growing
Mm.
up in the States, you cannot imagine going somewhere and
Oh,
there's not a bunch of churches around. Okay. but I've lived in many countries where Christianity was just not the thing. Okay, it was not.
Yeah.
It was an Arabic country. It was a Hindu country. It
Yeah.
was a Hindu country. It was a whatever. And so here you are as a young person. You think that you're there just to play sports. Okay,
Yeah.
but you're actually there for a much bigger purpose. And just because you don't know how to conduct yourself or how to handle yourself in certain situations, doesn't mean that you're going to get a break from the enemy, and doesn't mean you're going to get a break from the people that might be trying to take advantage of
Mm-mm.
that.
Nah.
So I do talk a lot about, I talk about finances a bit. I talk about social media a bit.
Good.
So these are some of the things that you got to make it helpful. It's a lot of people that are taught how to be a leader, how to work hard, and those sorts of things. Every coach is going to teach you that because it benefits them. Okay,
Yeah.
and there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. But you're going to live the majority of your life not on the court, not on the field. Okay, so you're talking
Mhm.
about 24 hours a day. You're actually going to be on the court or on a field somewhere. Okay, but the rest of
Mm.
the day you're out with the wolves. Okay,
Yeah.
so once you
Yeah.
leave the house, your front door is lights, camera, action. So
Yeah.
that's volume one, is what you need to know before you go. Volume two deals with what you need to know during the season. Okay, so now you're
Mm.
at university. Now you move to another city, another state to go to this prep school. Now you moved across the country to play on a professional team, or you moved out of the country to play on a professional team. Okay, what do I do now? Okay, I didn't know anything about blessing the home. I can't tell you how many apartments and flats I lived in throughout this planet. Okay, that I
Yeah.
had no idea how to bless a home, and you having nightmares, you have all this crazy stuff happening. Okay,
Mm.
just need to
Wow.
bless your home. Okay, I
Yeah.
didn't know anything about my heritage or how important identity was until you're on the team and everyone's having conversations about where they're from. Everyone knows their tribe. Everyone knows their heritage
Yeah.
stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
and it's
That's
benefiting them
big.
financially. Okay, so it's benefiting them financially. So we talk about some of the issues here in the states. As far as dealing with different races and whatnot. When you move out the country, it's very in your face. This is what it is. Only two Americans be on the team. Some countries, only one American can play. So you might have two or three Americans on the team. Only one can be on the floor at a time. Okay.
Wow.
Really?
So you have these
Wow.
things and it doesn't matter if you're Black American, White American, Asian American, you American. Okay. The only one of you can be out here. Only two or three of you can be on the team. Whatever. Okay.
Mm.
And so these are things that growing up here is just totally outlandish and out of bounds. You're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why can't everyone be on the same team? This is land of the brave, home of the free. We're welcoming everybody. Not everybody else thinks that like that. Okay. And so
Mm.
I understand it from their vantage point as well, because you're talking about smaller countries. We have 300 million people. Most countries are not that large.
Mm.
So,
Right.
so if they make it no boundaries, okay, then a lot of local
Mm.
people there won't have
Mm.
jobs. So I understand both sides of it, but you have limits on not just Americans. You have limits on how many people from Africa can be on the team, how many people from different countries in Europe can be on the team. So you have these intricacies, but these are some of the things when you are traveling and playing
Mhm.
in these other places that will make or break your experience. So
Absolutely.
Definitely.
those are some of the things. But so volume two, what to do while you're there, also is a big portion on dating. Okay, so that's something that a lot of us have struggled with, and it's very challenging, because of the temptation. I
Hmm.
interviewed
Yeah.
16 pastors, okay, and many of them are from the States, but many of them are from other countries. And I really wanted to interview the ones from other countries more so than our country, because here you are, you're 25 years old, you're 22 years old, okay, 27 years old, you're an adult, but you're still very much a young person. And now you're
Hmm.
dropped off in Australia. Now you're dropped off in China. Now you're dropped off in South America somewhere, okay? And so you're in a different place. And so dating is a bit different, okay? Your friends are not with
Hmm.
you. Your family is not with you. The people that's telling you what's going on when you're not around is not going on. You don't understand,
Mm.
politics, the different
Yeah.
relationship practices and things like that. So you're figuring things out. And oh, by the way, at the end of the season, okay, now you got to move to another country, okay?
Wow.
Mm.
So so you get thrown up in all this. So it was very important for me to interview these pastors from different countries, because now we can figure out, how do you even find a church in your country? Okay, because everyone's
Mm.
use the internet. Well, I tried that. Okay, so I tried that. So here I am. I'm watching the internet church in the state. From in the states. Okay, but I'm living in France. I'm trying
Mm.
to
Mm.
apply what the pastors are teaching on the internet, right? Not working for me over in France. Okay. And it's not because
Wow.
God's word doesn't work. It's because I'm on the wrong chapter, trying to use the wrong chapter of God's word, because I needed a local pastor that's with me in front of me, that's dealing with what's in front of me. Okay. So I'll
yeah.
find a local church where I'm at. Okay. Sometimes that local church might be an hour away. Okay.
Yeah.
Or it might be in a language that I don't currently
Yes.
speak. So
Yeah.
how do I deal with that? How do I not lose my walk? Because life is still happening. The enemy's still coming at you. You're still having troubles at work periodically. You still have
Yeah.
people in the neighborhood that might get on your nerves. Life doesn't stop. Okay. But my walk has to continue, and I have to keep getting better each year because more is required of me each year as well.
Wow.
Wow.
I told you, Joe, we had a special guest. I
Yeah.
told you. And
Yeah.
this is just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
This is just scratching the surface. We're going to talk off camera, Coach, because we didn't even get to your coaching and the other 12 other areas I want to talk to you about in your experience. But man, I'm going to order the book and have you sign it for me. And man, there's so many young people, Christian young people, who are struggling, really struggling with the dynamics of mental health.
Yeah.
The dynamics that you highlighted. And so, on that note, Coach, we'll talk offline to get the rest of these treasures that you got hidden. Because is it your daughter or your brother's daughter who plays, and she's like a ninja? Is it your daughter or his daughter?
No, I don't have any kids. My brother has all boys.
Oh, okay. So it must have been okay.
Well,
I got so excited. But listen, we're going to wrap up. We want to thank you again, Coach, so much for sharing with us. And, we're going to do part 2. You're just going to let us know when. And the sooner the better, because I really want people to hear the Mali piece and how that happened. And, the rest of playing internationally and, being inducted to the Hall of Fame. That doesn't happen every day.
nope.
And what you're doing now and how are you impacting young people now. So there's still much to cover, Smarterfan podcast family, and we're just scratching the surface. Joe, anything you want to add before we wrap up?
Well, it was very enlightening, that's for sure.
I told you. I dug this out of the 9th inning, running to the wall, jumped over the wall and caught the ball.
Yeah. Well, we have plenty more to go.
Plenty more to go. So again, Coach Reed, thank you so much. And Smarterfan family, we thank you. And we've got more coming to you. And we just get better and better. And as we always say, Joe,
stay in the game.
Stay in the game. Good night, folks. See you next week.
Good night, all.
Thanks, man.
Smarterfan. Yeah.